Luke Walton has been fired as the head coach of the Sacramento Kings, and coming up on NBA Now, we're going to take a look at 10 candidates who could replace him as the head coach of the Sacramento Kings. But first, Chat Sports brings it all to you. If you're a diehard NBA fan, you got to subscribe to the channel. We bring you the latest NBA news and rumors, the best NBA free agency coverage, NBA draft insight, live shows and mailbags. And here's the deal, not just during the season, all year round. So hit that red subscribe button down below and join a family of real ones that's approaching 270,000 subscribers. Welcome into NBA Now by Chat Sports. I am your host, Chase Senior. I hope all of your weeks are off to a fantastic start. The same cannot be said for Luke Walton, because on Sunday, as everybody was focused in on a lot of NFL games, Luke Walton was fired by the Kings organization. Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN broke the news late on Sunday morning, saying this: the Sacramento Kings fired coach Luke Walton on Sunday, sources told ESPN. Kings have lost 7 of 8 games and dropped to 6-11 on the season, leaving them in 12th place in the Western Conference. As for who is going to be the interim head coach, little bit of a debate as to whether it was going to be longtime head coach Alvin Gentry or former Sacramento King Doug Christie. It is going to be Gentry. Gentry will become the Kings interim coach. Wojnarowski said he's already under contract through 2022-2023. He gets a raise to take the interim role and agreement on some benchmarks of the success the rest of the season as they try to basically right the ship in Sacramento, and we'll see if Alvin Gentry can keep his job any longer. There was some heat on Luke Walton going into the season, and because of that slow start, he is out. Now, before we continue to break all of this down, I do want to ask you this question. If you're new to us here at Chat Sports, we're a very interactive YouTube channel, and we love hearing from you. So let me know right now in the comments section where the Kings coaching job ranks among all teams in the NBA, and scale it for me from 1 to 30. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's YouTube video. So if you get hit with that ad break, scroll on down, get your votes in, and by the time that ad is done, we'll be right back. As for what Luke Walton did in SAC-TOWN, really didn't live up to the expectations that the organization had for him after he was first let go by the Los Angeles Lakers. Then he took over a young team in Sacramento. His first year, 31-41. Then in 2020-2021, once again, 31-41. And to start this year, didn't have a long leash, 6-11. They really struggled to start the year. An overall record in Sacramento of 68-93. And with Luke Walton, look, he got that head coach with the Lakers because he did a terrific job with the Golden State Warriors. After Steve Kerr had all those back troubles, he stepped in as the interim head coach, and the Warriors didn't miss a beat. But he was bad as a head coach with the Los Angeles Lakers, and those struggles continued in Sacramento. And this is a guy who really hasn't been able to find his footing as a head coach in the National Basketball Association. And there are a bunch of factors as to why Luke Walton didn't succeed as the coach and why the Kings have just been a bad organization for more than a decade now. The big one for this organization, taking Marvin Bagley in the draft a couple years ago over Luka Doncic. In Doncic's first 3 years, those numbers that he's put up, identical basically to LeBron James, which really is crazy. Whereas Marvin Bagley right now, not even contributing to the Sacramento Kings right now. He's getting DNP'd. Imagine what this organization would look like and the promise it would have with Luka Doncic, who's a superstar, a top 5 player in the NBA nowadays, in my opinion, over a guy like Bagley, who's not even contributing right now. SAC-TOWN has been loser town for a while. We're talking about a franchise that has not made it to the playoffs in 15 years. And it's really unfortunate because this fan base in Sacramento is a really good fan base who is very passionate about their team. They consistently sell out arenas for some of those big games, but they haven't had a winning team to root on for a very long time since Chris Webber, White Chocolate, Doug Christie, and the boys were balling out, Vlade Divac as well, for the Kings in the early 2000s, and we know what happened in that Western Conference Finals against the Los Angeles Lakers. I'm sorry to refresh your memories. Now, I think this job is pretty intriguing for the 10 candidates that we're going to break down here in just a few moments, because because there are some solid pieces on this roster right now. Harrison Barnes, really good two-way player. He's averaging almost 20 points per game. De'Aaron Fox is lightning quick. He can go on a heater offensively as well. You have Buddy Hield, who is your floor stretcher and very good three-point shooter. Since he came into the league out of Oklahoma, he's been up there percentage-wise from deep with guys like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. Those are just facts. You sign Rashawn Holmes in NBA free agency, and he's having a career year, averaging about a double-double. Tyrese Halliburton is a pick that I loved in the 2020 NBA draft. And Davion Mitchell, out of the national champion Baylor, has been really good as a two-way guard as well. So it's not like this roster is bereft of talent, and it's not like some of these replacements that we're about to get to are going to take over a roster that is awful. A big reason why Walton was let go by this organization, failing to reach the expectations that they set forward, because they understand this is a team with some talent. Next question for you in the comments section, as we love our audience interaction, as I mentioned here at Chat Sports. Before we break down these candidates, 10 of them to be exact, who do you want to take over the Sacramento Kings after Alvin Gentry is done as the interim head coach? It could be him. It could be another name. Get those names in the comment section right now. Thanksgiving is next week and the holiday season is right around the corner, so why not treat yourself or treat one of your friends or your loved ones with some nice NBA gear thanks to today's sponsor, Fanatics. If you go to chatsports.com/NBA gear, there are a bunch of deals that you can get yourself hooked up or hook up another loved one or a friend during this holiday season. If you're a Kings fan, ride or die with SAC-TOWN, maybe you can cop one of these hats. The Lakers, well, LeBron James, he might have thrown an elbow in that Pistons game to draw a lot of blood, but hey, he's still one of the GOATs and one of the best players of all time. Steph Curry on an absolute heater for the Golden State Warriors, who are off to a terrific start, 15-2 record. He's an MVP candidate. So too is Jason Tatum. After a sluggish start for the Boston Celtics, he's balling out as well. There are jerseys, hoodies, hats, pants, socks, all types of gear. All you got to do is go to chatsports.com/NBA gear. Use that link down below for those deals to apply. Therefore, Fanatics knows that we sent you. Let's transition to these Luke Walton replacements, and we're going to start with Alvin Gentry, Doug Christie, two of the names who were vying for the interim coach role, because it's only right that we discuss these guys because they do have an opportunity to become the head coach of the Sacramento Kings once the organization makes that decision final. 5 names right now, and I'll expand my thoughts and then get to 5 more. Alvin Gentry, Doug Christie, Kenny Atkinson, he's currently an assistant coach with the Golden State Warriors, used to coach the Brooklyn Nets. Darvin Ham is an assistant coach with the defending NBA champion Milwaukee Bucks on the bench of Mike Budenholzer, and Becky Hammon, a longtime assistant for Greg Popovich. Let me first get to Alvin Gentry. He has a plethora of head coaching experience in the NBA, and he's had some good moments as a head coach in the league. But really, he doesn't move the needle for me. My thought here, if you want to hire Alvin Gentry as the longtime head coach, and he does a good job as the interim coach, maybe you get that veteran presence to be the long-term solution, a guy who is well-respected around the NBA. But for me, doesn't do much to move the needle, in my opinion. As for Doug Christie, there were some conversations about him becoming the interim head coach over Alvin Gentry. Had some really good years with the Sacramento Kings as they were making deep playoff runs in the early 2000s with those teams that I talked about earlier. During that span, 2001 to 2005, a little more than 10 points per game, a very good defender. I'd classify him as a glue guy, and a lot of people around the league do respect what he's been able to do from a player development standpoint. I don't think the problem with Sacramento, outside of Marvin Bagley, has been player development. I just think this is an organization in flux right now. One of the candidates I do like a lot is Kenny Atkinson. Now, this is a Sacramento organization as a whole that really needs to retune, refine, and rebuild their culture. Atkinson was able to do that after some ugly years with the Brooklyn Nets, and he was able to get them back into playoff contention and really put that franchise in a spot where they were able to land those big-ticket free agents in Kevin Durant as well as Kyrie Irving. And now he's an assistant coach under Steve Kerr with the Golden State Warriors, who I think plays the most beautiful, selfless, free-flowing style of basketball in the NBA. and you go back to some of those intriguing pieces that we discussed earlier on this Kings roster, I think they could up the tempo a little bit and play a similar style to Golden State. And Atkinson has been with the Warriors the last 2 years. I think he has learned a lot about how a well-run organization does flourish and run, and the Kings could certainly use that. As for Darvin Ham, last offseason, when there were several head coaching vacancies across the NBA, he was getting a lot of head coaching interviews. And same can be said with some of these candidates. Darvin Ham, Mike Budenholzer, who had a lot of success with the Hawks before going to the Bucks. They, of course, won that championship last year. I put stock in assistant coaches who are in winning environments, because for 15 years, the Sacramento Kings have not been a winning environment, and maybe Darvin Ham can bring that to Northern California. As for Becky Hammon, also like Darvin Ham and some of these other coaches that we're discussing, has had head coaching interviews in the past. And if the Kings want to rebuild in a way that an organization never has before by hiring the first female head coach in the history of the NBA, this could be the rebuilding moment to possibly take that chance, make a big swing with Becky Hammon. Learning under arguably the best coach in the history of the league in Greg Popovich, she has a plethora of experience, really good player at the NBA level, has been a very well-respected WNBA, and has been a very well-respected assistant coach for a very long time. I think she's going to become a head coach at some point. It's just a matter of when at this point. Could it be with Sacramento? We'll see. Other candidates in the mix for me, some more realistic than not. Bobby Jackson is right now the head coach of Sacramento's G League affiliate. People have also discussed and raved about his ability to develop players. He's a guy in the NBA who really had to earn himself a role as a player, because it's not like he was extremely athletically gifted. He had to earn his way with smarts and hard work. I like how that could translate to the coaching level, and he's been able to do that with their G League affiliate. Mark Jackson is always discussed as a head coaching candidate. He wants to get back into the league. Of course, he was the head coach of the Golden State Warriors before Steve Kerr took over, and because Kerr won 3 championships and they made it to 5 straight NBA finals, everybody thought that's because Steve Kerr took over for Mark Jackson, and he was the pitfall for why the Warriors kept on coming up short, but he definitely has a good basketball mind. Maybe the more intriguing candidate of these last 5, it's Mike D'Antoni. For some of the reasons that I had discussed with Kenny Atkinson. Mike D'Antoni running his fast-paced spread offense that runs with a frenetic pace is really intriguing for me. He is now an advisor with the New Orleans Pelicans after being an assistant last year with the Brooklyn Nets. This guy is a basketball lifer, and while the playoff success deep into the postseason has been lacking for D'Antoni, the guy seemingly wins 45 to 50 plus games every year. Kings fans would die for that, and I think they'd be really excited with the style that the Kings could play. I don't think Stan Van Gundy and Jeff Van Gundy, who are actually, in my opinion, really good basketball analysts, are going to be realistic options, but these are names that are going to continue to surface as head coaching candidates for openings moving forward for all NBA teams that are looking for a head coach. The Stan Van Gundy experiment in New Orleans didn't make any sense to me. That's why it was a massive failure. I think he's a little bit too much of a boomer for me. Stan Van Gundy, though, has that credibility where maybe he would be able to bring this franchise back, and the same can be said for his brother, because they won't take any shit, they won't take any nonsense. This is an organization that has dealt with too much shit, too much nonsense, and that has really caused them to just not be a winning franchise for a decade and a half. So before we get out of here, one more question for you. What do the Kings need to do? You look at some of the pieces on that roster who they were able to acquire through the draft, through trades, and free agency. This is a team that, in my opinion, can win some games if they get that culture right, they get a system that makes sense, and they get a head coach in there who can just rebuild everything from top to bottom. But what do you think the Kings need to do? Do they need to do a full rebuild type RB? Do they just need to retool type RT? Get those votes in down below, subscribe to the channel, and as always, thanks for watching NBA Now.